Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go. Woo!
All right, little Saturday check down action here. Just saying hi on a beautiful spring weekend in the Twin Cities. The NFL draft is less than a month away, Judd, and the 2025 Purple Daily Draft Party presented by Standard Heating and Air Conditioning is coming up before you know it. This is our biggest and most fun event of the year here on Purple Daily, where we just celebrate the show, the audience, and the past few years, the draft for the Vikings has been kind of the main character. With them picking a little bit later, we're definitely going to narrate you through the draft and keep you posted on storylines and how things pertain to the Vikings, but it'll also be a celebration of the Vikings spending $250 million in free agency and this team potentially being a Super Bowl contender. So you can get your tickets to hang out with us at the Fillmore in Minneapolis on night one of the draft, Thursday, April 24th, 7 p.m. scorenorth.com/draft. That's scorenorth.com/draft. And we appreciate Standard Heating and Air Conditioning, Two Men in a Junk Truck, Roku TV, and all of our great partners that help us put this show on for the fourth straight year. So we 15 minutes or so here on this checkdown episode, and we have a few emails left over from Feedback Friday, if you are ready, sir.
I am ready. I am prepared.
So Kevin wants to know, he says, I was wondering if you all can do a segment or mention on a Feedback Friday episode, what are your thoughts on trading 3 first-round picks to the Titans and drafting Travis Hunter with the number 1 overall pick? Whoa!
Reckless speculation.
This is a need we desperately need to fill. Our secondary hole, along with the number 3 wide receiver being shaky. He could play 20 to 25 snaps on offense a game and be a lockdown cornerback on defense. There was speculation of the Vikings trading for Sauce Gardner, who is a little older than Travis Hunter, and we would have to pay him sooner and still give up 2 first-round picks probably. Just a thought, if you guys could discuss this. Enjoy listening to all the shows. Keep up the great content. Whew.
I love Travis Hunter. Like, I love what he does. I love what he potentially brings, but 3 first-round picks? I can't do that.
It's such a climb up the board, man.
Yeah. And if nothing else, well, my problem is twofold. One is 3 first-round picks is a ton for any player, and especially a non-QB. The other thing is, if you trade 3 first-round picks, you're also trading away future ammunition that you very well might need to make trades eventually.
Yeah.
I don't think I can do it. I love the kid. It's completely reckless. It's out of balance. It's out of line, and I love the suggestion, but I'm unfortunately out.
I am out too. I'll do like a spin-off question here, Kevin, sort of throw it back to the room. But really, like philosophically, the only position I would give up that much draft capital to go up and get is a quarterback, because a quarterback has so much more influence over wins and losses than any other position in football.
Right.
But you already have J.J. McCarthy as your franchise quarterback of the future. So there's really no scenario in which I would try to move 20 plus spots up the board, giving up multiple future first round picks when I don't need a quarterback anymore, at least not in 2025. So I guess another way you could spin this, though, is we've been talking about trading back. You only have 4 draft picks, so clearly they're going to just move back from 24 to 30 or whatever, or maybe they stick and pick. But what percentage chance would you give on them? Because it's not like they have a ton of needs on there. They don't have immediate have to draft a starter needs as much as maybe they did 3 months ago or in previous years. Mm-hmm. What consideration would you give to moving up? Not 20 spots and 2 future first-round picks, but moving up from 24 to 20 or 24 to 18 or something.
So what would the trade look like then? So I'm swapping my
pull up
24.
the draft value chart
here. I'm swapping 24 for 18.
Let me pull up the draft.
And now what else do I have to add?
Do you want to use the Jimmy Johnson draft value chart, or let's use the Rich Hill draft value chart?
Rich Hill. Great former Twin, swore a lot, and now he's a draft mastermind. And I'm sure he still swears a lot.
I think this is the...
But the Rich Hill, I think, is the more accepted one now.
Here we go. Okay, the Rich Hill chart.
Yeah.
So the 24th pick is worth $237.
Okay.
Let's say you move up to 20
Sure.
or 18. Let's say 18, 287. So that's cleaner math. So the 287. So you'd have to find 50 points in value to trade to the Seahawks. Well, the 97th overall pick is worth 38 points. So you would essentially have to give up the 97th overall pick, and then how do I just want to click on the Vikings here, and like a fifth basically, because they have the.
So
what
now
do
I'm
they
down
have?
to 2 picks left, or 2 picks, the first round pick, and then the
Yeah,
sixth rounder.
you'd give up because they've got the 139 and then the one. Don't they have another one in here in the fifth? The one something else. But you'd have to give up like a third and a fifth, leaving you with one remaining draft pick
Unless
in
I
the
trade
rest of
from-
the draft.
Unless I trade from the allotment of like the 2026, but the problem with that is that the points on those come down because it's a year out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd probably just stick and pick at 24 and or move back.
Yeah, you'd have to there, man. It would have to be a
love a
scenario
kid.
where, man, this guy that we thought was a top 10 pick is falling down the board, and
Well, you know
we
what?
got to make a move.
At the end of the day, I think what precludes you from doing that now is probably the fact that you did that a year ago with Dallas Turner.
Correct.
Like that cost you a lot.
And you probably did that because didn't Quasey wasn't part of the behind the scenes video, him telling the room, "I'll get him back. Hey, I'll get like the picks back.
Yep.
Don't worry, because people were like, ooh, are you giving up too much to?" So I think maybe part 2 of that shoe dropping is him trading back in 2025. Alex Pachetti, one of our favorite emailers, says, "Hey boys, wanted to hit you with a take on our defense as we head into the final month of draft season. I love almost everything about the offense, and I love almost everything about the defense too. The job Kwesi, KO, and Flores have done bringing in talent, developing, putting players in the right spot has worked brilliantly. And I'm the type of football observer that believes it's better to be elite at certain areas than to be good everywhere. You saw it with the 49ers, the Eagles during their recent runs of competitiveness. So my take is the Vikings should without a doubt take the best available interior defensive lineman with their first pick. I think it's incredibly difficult to not only identify a cornerback in the draft, but also get year-to-year consistency out of that position. I think the position of defensive line is much more projectable and predictable. And one of the biggest benefits of having an ultra-deep defensive line room is that you can rotate these guys, keep them fresh, and if they're effective, they make average cornerbacks look great. So I'd rather make that room elite. And then if you need to sign a veteran like a Stephon Gilmore again or whatever, just have competent average cornerbacks that look better than they are because you've got a crazy pass rush up front.
I would have no problem with taking a DT at 24. Zero problem. So, and the cornerback conversation's interesting. I used to think that if you wanted a really good corner, it had to be first round. I could see an argument now where it probably has to be like a top 10 to top 15 pick. But I would have no problem because the Vikings signed 2 veteran DTs coming off injuries, but there's no guarantee that A, they stay healthy, or B, don't at some point in time here fairly soon go off the cliff. So if the Vikings stuck and they pick a 24 and it's a defensive tackle, as we've done in our mock a bunch of times, I would have zero problem with that.
Yeah, it's number 1 on my wish list right now is just keep loading up interior defensive pressure, bring a young guy in. So if one of these 2 veterans or both are just off the cliff in a year, that you're not starting from zero again.
Correct.
So I'm all for it. And when's the last time you watched a Vikings team and thought both offensive and defensive trenches have an advantage week after week after week on the opponent? It's got to be like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
The Williams Wall defensive line with Jared Allen for sure.
2009
And then Hutchinson, McKinney, and
Yep.
John Sullivan, those guys.
Yep.
So yeah, I think we're tracking here. Alex Pachetti. I think we're all tracking here. Okay, Dustin, Airport Dustin, who I once grabbed a beer with at MSP a couple years ago. Airport Dustin says, "I'd love you guys to discuss the prospect of eventually seeing NFL contracts be talked about as a percentage of the salary cap instead of dollar amounts. Perhaps this will never happen, but it would be interesting to hear you guys debate or discuss on the show." I love this idea because I think sometimes we get accused sometimes, you guys talk too much about other people's money. Why do you care if Kirk makes this or Sam Darnold's going to get that?
Sure.
Well, it is jealousy. Quite frankly, it would be really nice to make $45 million a year to do almost
Not to
nothing.
play football, though.
Yeah. So yeah, like 90% jealousy and rage.
Yeah.
But no, it's about roster building strategy. And yeah, like think about in baseball, if instead of batting average, you talked about a player in terms of like sheer hits. Boy, Joe Mauer had 180 hits last year. That's pretty good. More hits than that guy over there who had 150 hits.
Sure.
Well, we use batting average because it's a percentage of at bats and it's easier to contextualize.
Mm-hmm.
When you throw out these numbers for football players, he has a cap hit of $40 million or $30 million. That doesn't really matter unless you have the context of what is the salary cap. Okay, but if I tell you it's a 53-man roster and that one guy is taking up 23% of the entire 53-man roster salary cap. So now you've only got, 77% to spend on the other players. Personally, that makes more sense in my brain, but I feel like the ship has sailed on turning the rest of the NFL fans and media to talk about it as a percentage.
And if you go, so once contract is filed and people actually see it, they do on over the cap, I believe, is one where they do put what the percentage of the cap hit is. The problem is we often talk about these contracts when they're initially signed. And so like that's just a dollar amount. And as we've said as a disclaimer for a long time now, it's not even accurate. Like if you I signed a 3-year, $110 million contract. Well, in baseball, that's ironclad. In football, it's signing bonuses and how much is guaranteed and how much is not. So football contracts are purposefully vague. And part of the problem too is when a guy signs a contract, it is always leaked by the agent. And the agent is always going to leak the best possible term of the contract as far as the cash goes. So I agree completely. And if we were we could do episodes breaking down the salary cap with full information and give you the percentage, and that's fair. But unfortunately, the most excitement, right, exists when Ryan Kelly just signed. For what? Okay, here's what he signed for. But we don't, it's funny too, because off this point, the other factor is this. The contract that you hear or what the player is going to make in football is not necessarily because of how the math is done. It's not the cap hit. So like the cap hit is a different thing. So you would need more information up front at the height of the excitement to actually reflect. The reason why, Phil, the Kirk Cousins contract was so easy to talk about off the top, it was all guaranteed, which was a first at the time.
Yeah.
So it's a fairly complicated thing, but you could actually, once all the contracts are in and published, you could actually have that conversation about what the exact hits are from a percentage standpoint.
Yeah. So Spotrac, I'm pretty sure, includes this information. Yeah, there's percentage here. So like Brian O'Neill is taking up 9.3% of the Vikings total cap in 2025, which again, it's they count the top 51 players on the roster for this math.
Sure.
That's massive. Now they could look at that and say, you know what though, our team is loaded. What they could do is they could do a restructure and lower that number for this year, and then shove some of that money in the accounting into future years.
Yep.
But they could also say, hey, we can absorb that right now, and then we don't have to worry as he gets older about having bigger cap numbers and void years. But beyond that, the only other two players taking up more than 5% of the Vikings cap this year are TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson. So they've done a really good job of just like smoothing it out, a lot of low cap numbers this year. But then in 2026, and they can finagle this, Jefferson takes up 13% of the cap. Then O'Neal is 8%, Darisaw 7.5%, Hawkinson 7%, Will Fry is up to 5.5%, 6%. And so on and so forth. So, yeah, and I know some people just like your eardrums bleed when you hear us talking about cap stuff and whatnot, but it's all part of the roster building strategy and process. And,
Right.
We try to do our best to fill in those gaps and provide that information for you guys. Cameron Childs, one more for you here. Hope this message finds you guys however you currently feel. Thank you, Cameron.
Appreciate it.
Very zen-like. I don't think you guys are talking enough about how much linebacker is actually a need for this team. As you guys have stated, Cashman is on the older side, and also Ivan Pace's pass coverage is not great. Imagine if the Vikings got a Fred Warner type at middle linebacker.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Love the show.
I feel like in our mock drafts, talk about this a lot. The interior linebacker, there are concerns there. The two starters are good. Pace, yes, is not great against the pass, but he is effective against the run, and for his size, he does a lot. Cashman had a great year, but his history is, and this happened in 2024, he got hurt. So, yes, I agree with this. I agree with this that it's not that I'm looking to replace the two. It's that I think that between the time missed last season with Cashman and Pace, there has to be an acknowledgement that it would not hurt you to get stronger there.
On Ivan Pace, he is one of the more unique players in the NFL in that the things he's good at, he is elite at. But the thing, pass coverage, that he's not good at. So here's Pro Football Focus. They have 90 qualified inside linebackers from last year in the NFL. Ivan Pace as a run defender, 8th out of 90 in PFF grade.
Wow.
Ivan Pace as a pass rusher from that interior linebacker spot is 4th out of 90. But Ivan Pace in pass coverage is dead last out of 90.
Wow,
PFF
dead
grade.
last.
A 29.3 grade.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
When opposing quarterbacks target him, they have a 117.2 passer rating. They were 24 of 29 for an 83% completion percentage when targeting him last year.
Remarkable.
And he had a couple penalties in there too. So, but it's tough. It's like, all right, so he's awful at that. He's kind of undersized, and that was him in college. That was him at Cincinnati. That was the scouting report. He's just really suspect in.
Right.
So could he be a guy that is, and he's kind of this anyways, but that you only trust on first and second downs, but then when it's like third and must pass, he's just never on the field, and that's kind of how they roll anyways.
And if you got a big time guy too, he probably does start. It's interesting. I guess I trust that Flores is getting the personnel that he really wants. But you do wonder what he could do with, and we're going to see it a little bit next season with more toys, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, linebacker is definitely on the watch list for this draft, for sure. And Cashman's not, he's 28. He's not like.
It's more the
ancient.
injuries, I think, than the age.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, but again, I think if it's a priority, it would be addressed.
Yep. So there's your leftover feedback Friday here on this Saturday checkdown episode of Purple Daily. He is the sports dad, Judd Zulgad. I am Phil Mackey. Dex will be back with some vent line tomorrow. And then, we're less than a month away from the NFL draft. And the draft party, again, scorenorth.com/draft. We're looking forward to seeing as many of you as possible at the Fillmore on Thursday, April 24th. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.